Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. It's a 2025 copy of a Rolex fresh out of China. We've all seen the videos of the watch experts on YouTube claiming that it's very hard to tell the difference between the real thing and the simulacrum. Well, we're not getting into what's going on with the outside of the watch. We're going to take a close look at what's occurring inside the case. Let's not whiffle-waffle around here. We shall get the back off and get some first impressions. This is most discombobulating. While the layout and overall design looks mainly recognizable, every detail is off. Some a little bit and some a lot. The owner of this watch also owns many real high-end watches, but there are occasions when a copy like this can fill a gap and have a use. He has asked for this watch to be serviced immediately after it was purchased, so what we are seeing here is the condition the movement left the factory. There are lots of fragments and contamination here, but not as bad as many of this type of watch that will have huge amounts of metal shards all over the place. Watch the pivots of the automatic works as the rotor moves. That is indicative of the manufacturing tolerances of the parts used here. These tolerances can affect the overall performance of the watch, particularly in the long term. Let's get the automatic works off so we get a better view. This bolt is very tight. That was hard to undo. Might need a little lie down with a damp flannel on my forehead to recover. A little tension into the winding mechanism via the crown can help release the automatic works. Throughout the disassembly, we shall be taking a close look at the quality of the finishing on the bearing surfaces of the parts, along with the fit and adjustment. We shall let you decide if the quality displayed makes this watch good value. Talking of value, we believe this watch cost around £500. For those not blessed by having pound sterling as their currency, that's the equivalent of 341,000 Costa Rican columns. We're looking at how clean the movement is, checking the end shake of the wheels and the lubrication. With the case clamps removed, we can finally get the movement out of the case. This is interesting. There are dial foot screws here, as there should be, but the dial looks like it just uses a friction fit lip around the edge. We shall loosen the screws just in case, but we think they're not used. Friction fit dials are not great from a servicing point of view. Hard to get off and even harder to get on. We assume they utilize a jig and press in the factory. As ever, first part out is the balance. Some people swap out these balances for actual Rolex parts, as the clone watches still use a balance with a regulator arm. We are letting the power down now. Forgetting to do this results in explosions of broken watch parts and extremely fruity language. And we shall remove the pallet fork too. Always good practice to do it now, in case there's some residual power left in the mainspring. The pallet jewels have a lot of superfluous lubrication on them, and we'll have a close look at the escape wheel teeth. The escape wheel, pallet fork, and balance are the key components in any watch. It's here that quality and correct adjustment have the largest impact. The teeth on this escape wheel have a different profile and finish to that found on high-end watches. We shall see how well they perform at the end of the video. Over to the keyless and motion works. With no date, this is a simple affair. We're guessing the person assembling this watch wasn't wearing finger cards. Mechanism plate off, followed by the setting lever spring and the intermediate wheels. Spring for setting lever may exit the movement now, followed by the setting lever itself. Can never remember this part's name. Let's guess intermediate wheel yoke and hope nobody spots we're making it up. Yoke spring and yoke are policed with the Watchmaker's special stick with Rodico on the end. The clutch and winding pinion can abandon ship at this juncture. And with the minute wheel and cannon pinion rehoused in the parts tray, we can turn our attention to the Watchmaker's side. No lollygagging. Let's get to the train of wheels bridge. We forgot to remember that the intermediate crown wheel needs to be removed before the train of wheels bridge. Please don't judge us too harshly. Here's the train of wheels, responsible for transferring the power from the mainspring to the escape wheel, where it is passed through the pallet fork to the balance wheel in small chunks. The escapement is one of the earliest examples of digitization. Time itself flows continuously, smooth and amorphous, like a river without clear edges. But the escapement interrupts that flow, slicing it into tiny units. What was once intangible and infinite becomes quantifiable. And here's the trouble. Once time was chopped into neat little pieces, it stopped being ours. Suddenly every tick was a reminder we were late for something. Before watches, if you were late, you could shrug and blame the sun. Sorry, it was hiding behind a cloud. Now you're precisely 3 minutes and 42 seconds late, and everyone knows it. And it gets worse. Alarms now tear us from sleep like tiny mechanical drill sergeants. Schools march children through lessons by the bell. Thanks to bloody watches. Bosses invented timesheets. Thanks to bloody watches. We have cooking timers, so now even the toad in the hole is judging us. And don't get us started on daylight savings. All of humanity, twice a year, fiddling with the clock hands like puppets. Those bloody watchmakers have a lot to answer for. In their obsession with order, they didn't just measure time, they turned it into a ticking autocrat. Give it another century, and we'll be timing lunch breaks with atomic lasers. And all because 800 years ago, some smart-ass thought, I bet I can make this thing go tick. And the worst part, we just spent exactly 1.5 minutes ranting about it, which of course we only know because of the watch we are wearing. The rules of YouTube dictate that we must now ask you your opinion regarding how evil watches are. Comment down below. Right then, where are we with the disassembly? Just getting the barrel bridge off, pretty close to completely apart. We shall remove and replace the mainspring. Also, correct lubrication of the barrel is key for good performance of automatic watches. The automatic works is the last step in the disassembly. This design is simple with reverser wheels that are easily cleaned. Rolex mandates the reversers are treated in epilam and only the pivots are lubricated. We shall also follow Rolex service procedures, treating the balance cap jewels, escape wheel, pallet fork jewels, and the seconds hand wheel long pivot with epilam. While we finish the disassembly and the parts are being cleaned, in preparation for the cleaning machine, let's have a little heart-to-heart. As people who've watched some of our previous videos know, I am not only the most humble watchmaker on YouTube, I may be the most humble, extremely talented person anywhere at all. It's a heavy burden to carry when so many people say that I am indeed a watchmaking god. It's not my place to say if they are right or wrong, but perhaps this little song might help.
They queue up round the block, waiting for my touch. Say I've got the magic hands, say I've got the stuff, but I'm just a man with steady fingers and a loop. Not some deity of timepieces, not part of heaven's troupe. I wind the springs, I set the gear. I've been doing this for years, but when they kneel and start to pray, I have to turn and walk away. I'm not a watchmaking god, I'm not a watchmaking god. I just happen to be rather good at making timepieces work like they should. I'm not a watchmaking god, I'm not a watchmaking god. Please understand, I'm just a craftsman with a plan. They bring me broken Rolexes like offerings of gold. Say only you can save us now, or so I have been told. But I learned my trade in Epping, not on Mount Olympus. I use tools, not divine powers, though my skills are quite ambitious. I clean the parts, I oil the wheels. I know exactly how it feels when people think I'm something more than just a bloke who runs a store. I'm not a watchmaking god, I'm not a watchmaking god. I just happen to be rather good at making timepieces work like they should. I'm not a watchmaking god, no, I'm not a watchmaking god. Please understand, I'm just a craftsman with a plan. Look, I appreciate the reverence, truly I do, but I put my trousers on one leg at a time, just like you. I make a lovely cup of tea, I watch the telly in the evening. I'm not omniscient, I'm not omnipotent, I just know my way around a Mainspring. I'm not a watchmaking god, I'm not a watchmaking god. Though my Omega repairs are quite nice and my cardio work's worth the price, I'm not a watchmaking god. I'm not a watchmaking god with skillful hands. Just give me credit where it's not a god. Ridiculously good, actually. I'm not a god. I'm not a god.
What's the timer for, we hear you ask? We are measuring how long the balance oscillates after being turned to 180 degrees. We are looking for at least 30 seconds. And yes, this passed the test easily. We shall proceed with the assembly. We are applying braking grease to the barrel wall. This grease regulates how the spring slips when the watch is at full power. And now the new mainspring. Careful now, that was very close to disaster. My great-grandfather was hit by a flying mainspring. He never talks about what happened, but to this very day he can't say the word twang without a 1,000-yard stare. The barrel arbor is returned to its home now. We fit the lid and make a couple of checks that there is the correct end shake and the arbor is engaged with the spring. With the mainspring barrel installed, we can get on with the train of wheels. Lubrication is all about putting the right oil in precisely the right place and keeping it away from everywhere else. We may now plonk the center wheel where it belongs and lubricate the center wheel top pivot. The center wheel has its own little bridge that sits on these bushings. The escape wheel is gently negotiated to its place in the movement, followed by the third wheel. And finally, the fourth wheel. This wheel holds the seconds hand. In this movement, the crown wheel resides on the underside of the train of wheels bridge. We should apply 3 little dots of blue grease. No more, no less. A small portion of oil on the barrel arbor before the barrel bridge is reinstalled. And again we find ourselves daydreaming while reassembling this watch and proceeding in the wrong order. Fear not, we shall soon recognize the error. And some blue grease in preparation for the intermediate crown wheel and its little friend, the sliding gear. Easy to forget the hack and only realize once the watch is back together, but not this time. Here we have the moment of realization. We've done it again. Let's get the wheel off so the train of wheels bridge can be placed. The bridge dropped perfectly into place on all the pivots. What luck skill? We mean what skill, of course. Some poofs of air on the escape wheel confirm that everything is located correctly. The watchmaker's special stick knows its duty to defend the correct position of the bridge at all costs until relieved. And now at last the intermediate crown wheel and his little buddy, the sliding gear, may be placed without fear of there being an issue. What's next? We hear you ask. Why, it's the pallet fork, of course. With its infinitely breakable pivots, we shall take great care. The watchmaker's special stick is earning his money here. Very easy for the pallet fork bridge to slip out of position. We shall put some power into the mainspring and temporarily install the balance, letting the watch run long enough for a cup of tea and a toasted crumpet, of course. This tests the work so far is correct and also removes the epilum from the working surfaces of the escape wheel and pallet fork in preparation for the lubrication. The pallet fork jewel is around 1/3 of a millimeter wide in imperial measurements. That's a distance so small it can't even be measured. The job of the epilum is to stop the lubrication from migrating away from where we put it now, something it would otherwise naturally do due to surface tension and capillary action. With the grease applied to the exit jewel and the escape wheel worked through one revolution, we can take a close look at the entrance jewel and confirm the distribution of the lubrication. That is looking good, maybe a touch more grease than perfect, but still good, and will help the performance of the escapement greatly. We shall lubricate the train of wheels. The rule, exactly the right amount when needed and nowhere else, applies double here. We should just show a couple of pivots being lubricated to illustrate the work. For the automatic works, the lubrication rule counts triple, maybe even quadruple. If any oil gets between the large flat surfaces of the reversal wheels, it will induce so much drag that it can stop the watch from winding automatically. At the end of this video, there will be a link to a video showing a genuine Rolex being serviced. We recommend watching that to get an instant comparison between the two. Would also be interesting to hear any opinions regarding the moral and ethical questions regarding the act of servicing a fake watch. Check that pivots are in place before screwing down the bridge. Will we use the Watchmaker's special stick? Of course we will. It's time to flip the movement over and install the motion and keyless works. We shall lay out the parts in preparation. Let's go. The merest sniff of blue grease on the center wheel pivot before we push on the cannon pinion. Notice the mark where the cannon pinion was pinched with a tool to make it fit during manufacturing. Some more blue grease to prepare for the winding pinion. Spoiler alert, blue grease is the star of the show on this side of the movement. We shall put some blue grease on the ratchet teeth, even though they don't really get used due to the function of the sliding gear on the other side. The clutch is next, blue grease, where it interacts with the yoke. We shall put the stem in now temporarily. It gets its share of blue grease right at the end, when we put the movement in the case. The yoke and yoke spring will join in now. In most watches, the yoke will happily sit in the clutch with the yoke spring in place too, but not this one. It has to be held there until other parts are installed. This is the reason we laid the parts out for easy grabbing while keeping the yoke held down. To get this 100% safe, we need to fit the yoke for sliding pinion, setting lever and spring for setting lever. Then we can relax. Spring for setting lever. screw, and relax. A few more daubs of, you've guessed it, blue grease, and we can start preparing to get some wheels and pinions in with some oil. Let's get these little wheels laid out so we get them right. The one without the lip goes here, then the bigger of the two remaining is next. And the smaller one last. Done. Setting lever spring can find its home now. Just one screw partially install, click the lever home, then tighten the screw. Just a few parts left, the mechanism cover with its two small screws. Then the hour wheel. And finally a cover plate that would be holding the calendar wheel if this was the version of the watch with a calendar. Normally we would install the automatic works after casing the movement, but for reasons about to become apparent, we are doing it now. We have arrived at the horror that is a push-fit dial, a part that normally any sort of touching gives a watchmaker the willies, and we've got to shove it on like a monster. We've put on fresh, clean finger cots, but still have concerns about damaging the dial finish or breaking apart the movement, which is why we installed the automatic works to give us more places we can safely push against. Still an absolute horror show, though. And we are on. There's some dust and whatnot, but can't see any damage. We shall use soft brush and then move on to the hands. Our hand keeping everything super gentle. We don't want to add any scratches. New watches are very unforgiving. Minute hand, same procedure. Check the gap between the hands and that they are parallel to the dial. With the seconds hand on, we could case the movement now, if it wasn't for a word on the dial, and that word is oyster, indicating this watch should be water resistant. Let's see if bubbles escape from the case. We have an issue. No bubbles, no issues. The dial and crystal are both looking spotless. At last the stem can get its much-deserved blue grease, as we finally case the movement. The very non-Rolex case clamps first, then we can fit the rotor. It's certainly looking a lot cleaner than when we started, and the lubrication is top-notch now. How will it perform? We put the watch on a temporary strap during testing and regulation, returning the bracelet only when we are sure we will not be opening the case again. Putting aside the fact this is a sheep in wolf's clothing for a £500 watch, this is not bad performance. Not great, but not bad. We do trust that everyone is and continues to have a marvelous day in all departments.